The other day, I was at my meditation center, and after the seminar, I was speaking to the Buddhist monk who's also the main teacher of the center. We were discussing sort of the universe, and then he ended up asking me what I do in life, and I answered that I study philosophy. Now, this is a guy, mind you, that has devoted his life to philosophical teachings, well, of the Buddha. He doesn't have a job, and he hardly has any clothes or any personal belongings. But yet his response was, "Oh dear, what are you going to do for work after you finish your degree?" And it's interesting to tell people that I'm studying philosophy because it's such a good example of a useless degree. Nobody starts a philosophy degree thinking that it will ensure a steady cash flow down the line or even the ability to pay rent or pay for food. People who graduate will most likely not go on to work in the field of philosophy because this is an extremely small and super competitive field, and the people, like at least the people I study with, wouldn't even consider it. And thus, it's not exactly a marketable degree, it's easy to shit on. And people usually have an extremely strong reaction when they hear that I study philosophy. It's often only what I can categorize as a mini existential crisis in the other person, like all gathered in just one reaction. Because most people kind of panic and will try to warn me about what a dumb choice it is to study philosophy, that I won't be able to get a job, or etc. etc. Now, I think this is sort of silly to bring up to me because you're sort of assuming that I haven't thought about the consequences. You're sort of just assuming that I've just never thought about what job opportunities I have after my degree or something like this. And also you're assuming that I'm pursuing my degree to get a job, but I'm not. I'm not going to argue with you that the skills that I will learn during my philosophy degree can be applicable to some work pursuit or whatever, because frankly, I don't care. And from my experience in the corporate world, I don't really think you need much skill at all to be successful. So I don't see why anyone would care either. I'm not pursuing my degree to prepare for a life in the workforce. That's not what I'm there for. And still, I find it to personally be one of the most valuable degrees that I've had the joy to pursue so far in my life. I would actually like to argue that it is precisely the perceived uselessness of the philosophy degree that makes it more valuable to me. See, I've studied before. I've studied design and I've studied business. These are both considered to be quite useful degrees in the sense that their monetary worth is pretty laid out. The skills you learn are directly applicable to the job that you'll get out of college, and the path to that job is usually pretty straightforward. You do good in school, you go network, you get an internship, get a job, and that's pretty much it. And this is also the issue, kind of. People, when they begin their business degree, already usually have their eyes set on the company that they want to work at, or at least the type of position that they'd like to have in the future. And they will spend their time working for this. Recruiters are aware of this as well, and they spend their time at business schools trying to snatch up the latest talents. And usually, you'll be working and studying at the same time, and often that means that you'll end up finding yourself in the dilemma to sort of having to choose to prioritize your work or your studies. But of course, this isn't really a dilemma at all. If you've been served a dream job or at a dream company, then you've managed to do what you're there to do. So your focus should of course be on your career. And maybe you should probably finish the degree so you can say that you have a degree, but if you could do without it, then you probably should do without it. In this way, the useful degrees are mostly a means to an end instead of a degree themselves, if that makes sense. And this will often, in my opinion, destroy parts of the integrity of the degree. There's less of a genuine interest in the studies and more of a general interest in finishing your studies. So, because there aren't any good jobs to look forward to at the end of my philosophy course, people are somewhat naturally forced to remain present in their studies. It's not a means to an end. The study has worth in itself. It's valued for the study itself. And I find it to subsequently have more value than the other studies I've pursued for that reason. And also, people that I study with are usually genuinely there to pursue knowledge about this subject. And this is surprisingly not the case in business school, in my experience, for example. It's not that people hated business or anything like that, but many, and perhaps even most, weren't really what I could call passionate about the subject either. They're more likely to be passionate about money or a certain lifestyle. And I think in this sense, a useless degree almost gets to the core of what studying is actually supposed to be. Because we used to study to learn, and now I think we study more to get a job. I think actually Wisecrack made a very good video about the student debt crisis, and within this video they sort of went through the history of universities. And they mentioned how intellectual inquiry at universities started out as something that was considered a part of like fully embracing one's humanity and developing a spiritual self, and that it was usually something that you did that was helpful to the community, but not necessarily something that would ensure you made a lot of money, because usually you'd end up working for the church or working as a teacher or something like this. Degrees back then were, as a result, usually crowdfunded. But then the demands of capitalism fucked that up as well, and now I don't think I don't think it would be wrong to classify and consider most universities to be a lot more like a trade school than an actual university. It's become silly to study something that doesn't directly translate into a job because of the demands of our economic reality. Now, having the ability to pursue a degree without any concern for the ROI is a privileged choice that unfortunately most people can't afford to make. And the thing is, I'm not able to afford this, however, because I have like insanely rich parents or anything like that. I'm able to afford this because I live in Norway and education here is free. In fact, I get paid to study. And I know that whatever job I do end up having after I finish my degree will pay pretty well. I know I will have my workers' rights protected, and I know that I'd be able to live a life of relative luxury, again, pretty much regardless of the job that I get. Now, this does not mean that people here are somehow not like bitches of late-stage capitalism like the rest of us. They are, trust me. Most people do pursue degrees in like business or engineering or something in between, but they don't have to. So many just don't have to consider the marketability of their degree when they're picking one. And I think this is the only way you should be able to do university. I don't understand how it's even possible to charge as much as you do in the US and the UK. Obviously, if it cost me 50k a semester to study, then my philosophy degree would definitely not be worth it in any sense of the word. This would just be way too dumb of a choice to make for me. But degrees shouldn't be costing this much in the first place. Like, what the fuck? Universities are founded on the idea that learning is good for you. It's good for society. It's intrinsically valuable. So it should be free as far as you can make it free. And then studying philosophy wouldn't have to be such a silly, silly fucking choice. That's what I think about that.